Catherine Berger Kay, who is with CBK and Associates. Catherine travels the globe in person or virtually to provide meaningful and practical professional learning in support of educators and administrators, and of course, students, from primary to higher ed. While well known as the author of the Complete Guide to Service Learning, Catherine's work extends to well-being and social and emotional dynamics, best teaching practices, meaningful curriculum, youth and adult leadership, and restoring communities to be inclusive, equitable, and culturally responsive. Catherine loves to write, read, dance, collaborate, and play with her granddaughter, Lou. She lives in Los Angeles, where on a clear day she can see the ocean. Having begun her education career in a rural education, she is more than happy to be with us for the retreat. So thank you, Catherine. I'm going to turn over the controls to you.
Thank you, Kevin. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you. I see some of you are probably, how many of you are at home? Wave if you're at home. Wave if you're in your office. Yeah, office, home, right? Anyway, I'm grateful to be with you, and again from yesterday, and I see a few familiar faces, so I'm grateful for that. And a shout out to Michelle. Thank you for introducing me here to this group, so I appreciate it. And I see that we have someone here who's in their office but no camera, but thank you for joining. We hope we'll have opportunity for everyone to participate. So to get started, I'm going to share my screen. So see if I can find it. There it is. So we're going to be doing some interactions today. Meaningful Conversations does require us to participate, so we have conversations. But just to get settled, I just want you to take a moment, make sure you're sitting comfortably, that you've got paper and pen. We're going to actually be doing some writing, and it may be hard to do on your laptop if you're on Zoom. So if you can, grab old school paper and pen to have it handy. If you'd like to say hi in the chat box, tell where you are, and what are you noticing out your window? Just take a moment and share what's out, if you have a window, what do you notice out the window? Let's just see where people are for just a moment as we're getting started and getting our supplies ready. Where are you? What do you notice? What's out your window? Fog, yeah. In the Bronx, I love the Bronx. Students studying, oh wow, that's wonderful. Sun is shining, I'm aspiring to that in Los Angeles. Great. Dennis, I used to have an office without a window. We painted a window on the wall just to pretend we had something to look at. So that's my suggestion for you today. All right, well, thank you for participating. So we're here to talk about meaningful conversations. Let's see who else just chatted. Pierce County, yeah, foggy here. I'm hoping it lifts soon. I'm sharing your fog, Michelle. So in thinking about what we'd be talking about today, I went back to your website again and was looking at what you described this organization to be. And I really pulled out this idea that you're relationship driven. And I think that's very true from what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, that it's about partnering. The values are student-centered, relationship-based, and it's about having a vision. So that we're having conversations about meaningful conversations makes sense, because that's a real key part of your organization. What you're working towards is having relationships that are strong, that matter, and that move you all forward collectively. So I just wanted to honor that in the work we're doing today. And we'll refer back to this as we go. You know, I mentioned yesterday that I did spend a year teaching in a rural environment in rural Maine. It was in central Maine. If you know the state, if you know Portland, Maine, and you go due north, and you go from, well, it's just about 2 hours due north of Portland, right in the center of the state. This is where I was in Temple, Maine, down a partially dirt road. And I was thinking, what did I learn from my time in rural education? I learned a couple of key takeaways that have influenced me as an educator forever. One is that relationships matter deeply, that we cannot skip relationships. that we have to, especially in an education setting, build relationships that stick together. We have to nurture relationships. We have to constantly go back to how are relationships working in this school? How are they working at all levels? Are people feeling people are coming down hard on them? Are we working collaboratively? What's the mode of leadership being approached in the school? But it's all about how relationships matter. Also, I learned the school was founded by George and Mabel Dennison. George is the author of a classic book on education called about lives, about our children's lives. It's something I'm missing the title right now from my memory. But George's book was the first book written on progressive education, and it was about the work of his wife, Mabel. And Mabel taught me more than anyone to listen. She used to actually just really take me to task. She said, listen to the children. She said, listen to the children. And I did. She taught me how to listen to them. And when I listened well to children above all else, I knew what to do as an educator. So I listened, and even now I listen to young people when I work with them. So it's critical that we listen to them and we make room to listen to young people, because I think they can be, as much as they're the core and the center of what we're doing, they can be left out of the conversation. So my work, for example, in New York City is all about building youth-adult partnerships. When I consult with schools, it's all about how do we bring youth and adult to the room, to the table together, and that's really critical. And I learned another critical lesson in the winter, which was when it's icy, don't slam on the brakes. Am I right? So think about that. As educators, are we slamming on the brakes too often in our buildings and with our schools? Are we slamming them on? I think this, for me, represents the difference between reacting to something, which is what we do with all these changes coming at us. It could be even a knee-jerk reaction. Are we responding? Are we taking even 5 minutes? I learned the 5 minutes lesson yesterday. We'll talk about that again from Kathy. That we don't slam on the brakes, that we really have to respond rather than react. And when we do that, we're going to be much more centered and grounded in the work we're doing. And we will, again, listen and honor the relationships that matter. So as I was reflecting on my time in rural, I realized that these lessons stuck with me and are really influential in what I do today. So as we look at meaningful conversations, we're going to go through a few stages with this. We're going to look at being centered and grounded. We did some of this yesterday, but it's important to do all the time, to take a moment and ground ourselves in the work we have planned. We're going to talk about being self-aware, because meaningful conversations have to start from being self-aware to move towards being aware of others, and also having aspirations. And this really is more about that vision you talk about in your organization. How do you have a vision? How do you have aspirations? And as we do this, I hope along the way, we're going to think about what's happening, what are we learning, and what is next moving forward. All right, so this is my plan for today. Everything could go to something else, but that's what I've kind of got in mind for us. All right. So we're going to start with grounding. Those of you who are here with me yesterday, we did some of this. We're just going to really do a few simple breathing exercises. And then we'll talk about why this is important and if it's important. I'm starting my day, it was a little hectic this morning, getting everything ready, thinking about what I have left to do. Yesterday I was on Zoom for about 6 hours. It was just a little much. How do we take time in those hours to just check in with ourselves? So for grounding today, we're just going to sit up straight. Yesterday we did box breath. Today I'm going to do something a little different. We're going to do a wave breath, just because I'd love to vary it. But for those who were not here yesterday, I'll review what the box breath is so you can use it, because this is my typical go-to. Box breath, we inhale for 3, we hold it for 3, and then we release for 3. So that's a very, very standard breathing process. But today we're going to do something to use our body as well, because I think we have to move a little bit. So we're going to raise our arms up. So everybody just reach up with me, and we're going to wave it down. Just breathe out. We're going to do that again. Just lift up. Inhale, look up. Move your fingers a little bit and just exhale. Drop your shoulders, drop your arms, and breathe it down. This is real important because many of us carry tension in our shoulders. Is that true for anybody here? Anybody carry here? Right. I know. So I'm doing it all day long, carrying that tension, especially on the computer. So we're going to, as we bring our arms down, we're going to drop our shoulders very intentionally. So one more time, lift up, reach up high, and just fill your lungs. Just fill them up all the way down to your belly. And then exhale, bring your arms down and drop those shoulders. And just double check, move your neck around a little bit, roll your shoulders a moment. And now let's really say good morning to everybody, because now I think we're ready. So good morning, everyone. All right. So what I'd like to do is just take a moment in the chat, just put one word, how you're feeling right now in this moment. How are you feeling right now? Just open up your chat, just one word. How are you feeling right now? And we'll wait to send all together. So just put your word in there. It's really fun when you wait. It's great to do with kids as well. Wait. So everybody put one word about how you're feeling right now. And at the count of 3, we'll press send. 1, 2, 3, go. Ready, happy, excited. I felt taller, pleasant. Oh, good. All right, so we're centered, ready, excited, alive. Yay. Yesterday, I mentioned that we take about 23,000 breaths every day. So how we use our breaths matter, and what we do with them really does bring us together. So I missed one response in the chat. I want to catch it before I go further. Great. Yay, Barry. Thank you. All right. So we're also going to go through our community agreements. Yesterday, it was interesting. I called them community, I forget, it wasn't agreements. I used a different word for them. Invitation. It was an invitation, but today we're making agreements because today we're really intentionally moving toward connection and community through meaningful conversations. We're taking a little deeper today in that respect. So I think it's important we call what we're doing what it is. Yesterday was an invitation to participate. Today we're making agreements. And I think this is important because you're going to be in community, many of you, all day or tomorrow. And what are the agreements that we want to hold? And the first one is to be aware of our identities. We all bring many identities with us. We all do. I have a whole list of them, from being a cisgender woman to being a grandmother to being the family cook and, dishwasher, and to being a consultant, to traveling around the world virtually right now. There's so many identities. We have to honor them and bring them together. Step up and step back. So what do I mean by that? That there'll be time. This is a day we're really going to share the mic. We're really going to be sharing, and all of us, I hope, will be able to speak and talk and share. So we'll take time to step up and to step back. And so we really want to honor that it's a shared experience. And so my friend Chris shared this acronym, WAIT. Why am I talking? Why aren't I talking? So if I'm talking, is there a why there? If I'm not, what am I avoiding? So we want to make sure that we share the mic, that we step up and step back. And then what's said here stays here, that we're going to be sharing personal stories, I hope, or aspects about ourselves that we may not walk down the street talking about, or we might. So what we stay here, if I tell a story, it's my story to tell. If you tell one, it's your story to tell. But what we learn here leaves here. And that's important. So we're honoring the privacy, but we're also sharing. And when I do this work with young people, especially when we're doing advisory or social emotional work, we also always know that if young people share something that crosses over into their safety, that actually must be shared and told. So we do understand the safety boundaries when we work with young people. Also acknowledge intent as distinct from impact. That if somebody can mute their mic, there's a background sound here I'm hearing. So if someone is not muted, please double check. That we acknowledge intent is distinct from impact. If I come up, Dennis, to shake his hand, if I was allowed to shake hands, or if I just even come up to, well, who knows, right? What's going on? If I'm able to walk up and shake Dennis's hand, but I step on his foot, I haven't meant to step on his foot, but I did. Right. So we can make impact without knowing. So we need to know the difference between intent and impact. This is a great concept to do with students at all ages. These are terms they are not familiar with. I guarantee most high school seniors don't know the difference between intent and impact. So we really want to bring this language in when we work with youth and when we work with our educators. What's the difference between intent and impact? Very young kids can get this. And we want to be present and take risks. We want to share the space, but we also want to be honest and share with each other. So I invite you all to hopefully accept these agreements. If you do, please give me a thumbs up. If you have others you want to share, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to just move on. So thank you. So to explore meaningful conversations, I want to break it down and see, what do we mean by this concept? So I'm going to try something to see if it works. If it doesn't, I'm going to go old school with my butcher paper behind me. But I think what we're going to try and do today is use a whiteboard. How many of you have used a whiteboard before? Anybody here, a Zoom whiteboard? All right, so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen, and we're going to actually go into a whiteboard environment. So if you are not able to participate on the whiteboard because of whatever you're doing or whatever you're seeing, what I'd like you to do is I'll draw it on here so you can see it. What I'm going to do on the whiteboard is make a wide chart. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, I think you can. And on one side, we're going to write the word meaningful. And on the other side, we're going to write the word conversations. So I'm going to do this on the whiteboard, but this is the process we're using. This is a great technique, and that's one of the reasons I want to share it with you, to break down concepts. So I'm excited to do this, and for the first time, try it on a whiteboard. I'm actually very excited by this possibility. All right. All right, so I'm going to attempt to draw on the whiteboard the same diagram that I did before. So I appreciate your patience with me. This is pretty new for me to do this. Again, I'm very old school. All right, so far it's coming along. So what I'm going to invite you to do is I'm going to write the word meaningful on one side here. And on this side, I'm going to write the word conversations. And what I'm going to invite you to do all together, we're going to work simultaneously, is we're going to take just a few minutes and think of all the words that come to mind when you hear the word meaningful and add it on this side, all the words that come to mind when you hear the word conversation and add it on this side. If you can't add it, you have trouble doing that, please put your words in the chat and we'll transfer them. But any words that come to mind. So everybody can join in right now and add words. So how we do this is we go to we open up the annotation under whiteboard, and you should see text and be able to come into text. Courtney, yay, she's writing communication. So let's everybody just start adding words. If anyone's having trouble using the whiteboard, please let me know or put your words in chat. Or you can say it out loud, just turn on your mic and I'll add them. So turn on your mic, put it in the chat, or write yourself. All right, so how to annotate is if I'm having trouble breaking. Oh, so what you do is you go to whiteboard at your screen, and if you click on whiteboard, you should see all the different annotations, and there's one that says text. On the far left, it says select text draw. If you click on text, it should work. So just put your words in here and we'll do it. We'll put it for you. I see relevant and open. And it's you're welcome to turn on your mic and just tell us. I'm going to just guess where it goes, but you're welcome to turn on your mic and just tell us what words you want to say, and we'll add them. So we've got, all right, we'll keep it going just another moment, another few moments. All the words that come to mind with conversation, that come to mind with meaningful. And again, you are more than welcome to turn on your mic and say them out loud if you can't get in here, and we will write them for you. Take a look and see what's missing. Okay, just got a new one. I love this. Engaging. Oh, yeah. Oh, you know what I just noticed? Someone wrote internal on meaningful, but you could also have internal conversation. So I'm going to steal that word and put it over here. How many of you participate in internal conversations all the time? I've learned that talking to yourself is a sign of genius, so I've never shied from it at all. All right, let's take a look at these words. Under meaningful, we've got personal, pertinent, heart, thoughtful, authenticity, matters, Depth connects caring, connects to all areas of life. Relevant, eye contact, internal. And then on conversation, we've got external and internal. I love when it's contradictions, when you can see both elements. So it's ongoing conversations, virtual, face-to-face, multiple people, learning, hopefully no hurt feelings. We know that can happen. Reciprocal conversations, back and forth, listening, open, engaging. So I just want to share for a moment. This is a process I've developed, and I'm sure it's not exclusive to me, but what we do is we take the words, we break it down, what do they mean? And then the next part is in the why on the top, we're going to come up with a definition of what meaningful conversation means in 10 words or less, and include an image. So what I'm going to ask you to do is now personally take a moment just for 2 or 3 minutes. I'll give you 2 minutes, is to create your own definition. You've got paper there. What is your definition of meaningful conversation, 10 words or less, and include an image? All right, so take a moment. And how would you define meaningful conversation or meaningful conversations in 10 words or less and include an image? Take 2 minutes to come up with your 10-word or less definition. I'm going to set my timer and I'll check back with you in 2 minutes and see what we have. Okay, and remember, you cannot use meaningful or a conversation in a definition of meaningful conversation. And when you have your definition, also create an image to go with it. All right. Let me get rid of those lines just to give us more space up here. All right. So who has a definition? Anybody have something to start us off? Who's willing? I need a volunteer.
I can share.
Okay.
An honest, open dialogue about relevant topics for those engaged.
Did you come up with a visual also?
It was 2 arrows pointing to each other, then spiraling.
Oh, nice. Nice. If I was quicker, I'd be able to draw it, but I'm definitely not. All right. So does someone else have a different definition that adds to that? Let's have a different definition. Thank you so much. Who's got another one?
I put on a heartfelt exchange of thoughts or ideas that are reciprocal.
Let me start one more time. I'm sorry.
Okay. Sorry, I'll take my mess out. It's a heartfelt exchange of thoughts or ideas that are reciprocal.
Great. I
And then I
apologize.
just let's put a heart to heart.
Nice,
That'll be it.
nice. Great. Can we get one more? Who's got another one? I love this. Anybody? Yes, please.
I wrote an opportunity for intentional dialogue that welcomes different perspectives. And I kind of just did like a cyclical, like an arrow, I'm not a good drawer, but I don't know if you could see,
Oh, yeah.
you know, so that it's like, it's cyclical. It's not one way.
Like in all different directions. I love it. All right. So let's just take a moment and look at this process that we went through. And we have these 3 definitions. And what I find when I do this, and I'm known for doing this in person, I take all kinds of terms, like you could do rural education and break it down. I do service learning. I do civic education. You could do so many writing process. This is a great way. And typically when we've been in the same room and space, you people around easel paper, like small groups around easel paper, and they first do the list of words and then they collaborate on the definition. And then when you put them up, you see a range of ideas and they formulate one overarching definition. They come together. So for example, if we think about it, I'm going to combine these. Listen to how much we have here. Each definition adds to the next. An honest, open dialogue about relevant topics for those engaged. It's a heartfelt exchange of thoughts and ideas that are reciprocal with an opportunity for intentional dialogue that welcomes different perspectives. One of us cannot do it alone. It's when we pull it together. And what I'd written here was connecting with authenticity, heart, purpose, and clarity. So what I find is this kind of a process engages us in meaningful conversations, and we're actually moving towards coming up with definitions and concepts that really work for us. So I'm thrilled that we were able to do this on the whiteboard. It worked. I'm happier than you can imagine because I'm always finding new ways for us to participate and connect. So how many of you are finding this could be, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. Let's see. Somebody put in the chat. We have some more definitions. Let's listen to these. Exchanges between people to communicate towards a common idea or goal, right? It shows we're moving forward. Being present, open-minded, and truly listening. An exchange that leads to learning, insight, or understanding, and conversations are helpful. So, Marie, I'm glad you like this. This is really a wonderful process, very flexible, and teachers can use this with students. I've used this when I've gone into governments and done workshops with adults. This is just a helpful process. And all ages can do this. With young children, you just do it together, but it actually works. So I'm going to try and save. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. We'll go back. All right. Thank you again. How many of you enjoyed that just collaborative thinking? And I haven't used the whiteboard. I've been meaning to, so I feel thrilled that worked. All right. So I'm going to go back to, and thank you for all the participation. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen back to my PowerPoint here. So I keep on my process. Right, I'd like to share a little bit more about meaningful conversations and what I mean by it. So just give me a moment to move this. Okay, so meaningful conversations are approaches that replace isolation with community and achieving connection. And this is really important right now. Many of us feel isolated from what's going on with COVID and the pandemic and being separated. There are many people, I know you know people, I'm sure each of you know people who are at home alone and not being with others. This is a very challenging time, and we could go into the whole psychological impact, kids not being with their friends. So it's real important we create opportunities for meaningful conversations and the connections that happen through that. And we'll talk about that in some resources as well. So we're going to be looking at some experiences together and also some strategies for everyday connections virtually and in person. So I wanted to share some of my thinking about meaningful conversations. I've been using and doing this work literally around the world. So meaningful conversations occur within a context of having a purpose. What's our purpose? The purpose can be just to connect. It can be to pass the time. It can be to achieve something, as someone said, to move towards a common idea. Meaningful conversations occur with connections. We find a way to connect. And that can mean by building on other ideas, by taking time, by putting aside other things. I mean, how many of us multitask all the time? I mean, all the time. I do too. You know, I will not tell you about the time I was on a 2-hour conversation and cleaning my desk at the same time. I will not tell you about that Zoom call, but I know some of you might have done that as well. So we want to really connect, and to do that, we have to put other things down and we have to just pause. We're looking also for continuity, that we don't need the conversation to end, to be finished, that we can say, let's pick this up, let's move it forward. And conversations that are meaningful require a sense of bravery and courage. Now, I was talking with a colleague who I love, one of my consultants, Chris, and we were talking about what is the difference between bravery and courage. And he explained something to me that I'm going to share with you. And again, I'm still thinking about this. All the work I present is always in process and evolving. I'm never finished. It's always in a constant state of dynamic. And he said to me that bravery is when we come forward with our true self, but courage knows we might encounter a challenge, that we do it anyway, that we might meet obstacles, we might be affronted, we might be confronted, but we take that step anyway because we bring courage to the table. So when we really know that we're taking a risk, and we want our students to be risk takers, so we have to model that in the dynamics we have and also in what we're doing. So there's also other reasons for meaningful conversations. And meaningful conversations move us from interest. And this is from the ground up. And I developed this, I'm going to just pause for a minute. I developed this because people talk a lot about helping young people find their passion. And I think passion is an adult word we lay on students, and it's a very heavy lift. What age did you find your passion, I'm wondering? You know, was it when you were 8? I'm not sure. Some people may have. And sometimes what we do with this word passion is we say, oh, Joey's the kid who's passionate about dinosaurs, but he was passionate about them last week, not this week. Passions are ever changing as young people are growing up. So rather than think about moving people towards passion, I think about how meaningful conversations connect us with our interests. We start discovering what we're really interested in. That can move us to curiosity, which can move us to deep inquiry, which can help us arrive at discovery, which can lead us to possibility. That could help us find passion. It could help us find more meaningful connections. It could help us direct us to where we want to go and move forward. So this is kind of a trajectory that I've developed as we're looking at meaningful conversations and really what it's about. So in his introduction, Kevin said about having challenging conversations. Now, I do know that the role of superintendents, educators, teachers, parents, friends, all cross over into having challenging conversations. So when we have challenging conversations or difficult conversations, courageous conversations, what are some of the ways and the language we can use to keep the door open rather than close the door? And my favorite line is, tell me more. Tell me more. If we ask someone, why are you thinking this? Or why is this a problem for you? I hear judgment in that why. I just do. If I say, well, why are you? It's implied that you shouldn't, perhaps. Now, I do appreciate the why. Simon Sinek in his work is talking, bringing back the why. I love the why. I've come back to why. But in these kind of courageous conversations, I think it's more about how do we keep the door open and remove judgment and just say, tell me more. I've done this for decades with my own kids. I've done this in all settings. Also, we don't have to have all the answers in the moment. We just don't. We think we do, but we don't. And one of the traditions I follow is when I am in some of my most challenging moments, whether it's something someone brings up to me or any dynamic, I take 24 hours to think about it. If I give myself 24 hours, I can find out what buttons of mine have been pushed, and I can remove some of those from the equation. I find often what we do is that, again, it's that difference I mentioned back from when I was in rural education, discovering the difference between respond and react. often I react in the moment, I respond with time. And when I come back with someone and I said, I was thinking about it, and they know that they matter to me, that they matter, and I really did think about them. So what I want to do is I'm going to stop sharing the screen for a moment and find out, because these are some of my tips. These are some of my foundational approaches to these challenging conversations. But I'm going to stop for a moment, and I'd like you to also turn on your mic and share with us, what are some of your approaches to these challenging moments that you use? What are some, and I will say that Brene Brown, and some of you are familiar with Brene Brown. If you're not, she's a social psychologist, also from Texas, where my roots are. And she is really brilliant about this whole area of how to approach challenging conversations. So you can listen to her podcast, read her books. But she also embraces this tell me more type of approach. So does anyone have what are some of your go-to strategies or processes? Anybody have anything they want to share or put in the chat box? And you're welcome to turn on your camera, even if you're multitasking. We won't mind. We understand how life is. So would anyone who's on screen or off screen like to share what are some of your ways of meeting challenging conversations? Or if you've used some of the strategies I mentioned, if they've worked for you. Anyone want to share for a moment? I could call someone out, but I won't. Whether you're in Bronx or Washington, you're welcome to share. Anyone? I can keep going. Maria, you want to share? Unmute, please.
I just realized I'm using my phone, and so I have to mute in both places. So apologies. What resonated for me was the one that says I was thinking about it, and I think one of the things that I've tried to put in my strategies when listening is taking away the word but. Oh, yeah. So when you're trying to like validate, so someone is telling you, giving you feedback, and you're like, oh yeah, I agree, but, and you go, and so I tried to listen more and just get that word but out and really validate, right? If that's how I made you feel, that's how I made you feel. And so how do we move forward? So that one really resonated for me. And getting rid of the word but. I mean, it's not as easy because we're so used to talking that way. I don't know, maybe others find it easy, but I really have to think about it.
Oh, I so appreciate it. I create a no but zone everywhere I go. I just call it a no but zone. I had a colleague, I was actually consulting overseas with an international school community. And I remember we were walking down from a school on a high hill after a workshop I led. And this teacher was very excited about the methods I mentioned. But on the way down this steep slope on these stairs, she used the word but 16 times, literally 16 times. All the reasons I can't, but, and I looked her at the bottom of that hill. And I said, Janice, you are never allowed to use the word but again. And I think I rattled her, and she's still a friend, so it didn't divide us. But I said, you could say and just pause. And that really shifted the conversation. So I really appreciate you reminded us about that. That is so important. That's really critical. And also Megan saying, focusing on the person, not on the topic, not the person, so it doesn't become personal. This is really, really important. And identify what you do have in common. We can agree on this. We can agree on this. Let's move from here. I think that's really, really key. Okay, anybody else? And these are such important skills and concepts to share and to make part of everyday dialogue with teachers and with students. I think it's real important. Anyone have anything else to share at the moment?
I ask clarifying questions.
Could you give us an example, Dennis? That's real important.
Well, depending on what they're saying, it almost always brings up a curiosity in me and how they got to where they're at, or maybe they didn't use language that was clear enough for me to understand. So I'll ask a question to get me closer to understanding, but questions seem to be safe.
Thank you. That's such a good approach. And one of the agreements I didn't put in that we often put in my consulting team is ask for literacy moments. How many of you know that concept? Because it was new for me. Ask for literacy moments. Yep, it's new. It's newer for me also, Michelle. I just learned it this year. So what is that? If someone uses a term or concept that I'm not familiar with or I don't know, I can ask for a literacy moment so we clarify what we're talking about. Because very often people are reticent to say, well, I don't know what that acronym means, or I don't know what that word means, or I don't know what that term means. But if you say, ask for literacy moments in your agreements, and I was on a call just, we were doing this big event, and in the middle of it, my friend Chris, who was facilitating, stopped and said, I'd like to ask for a literacy moment right now. Could you explain what you mean? And if he was needing the explanation, so were 3 other people, right? So it's a great term, again, to bring to students. What is a literacy moment? If you don't understand, it's part of our norm, part of our group agreements, is we always ask for literacy moments. So we know what we're talking about. We're sharing ideas. So I'm so glad we're having these thoughts just to remember all these different things. Right, anything else before I move on? I love this. I'm so appreciative. All right, so I'm going to go back and share the screen and keep us moving through all these different processes about meaningful conversations, which I'm enjoying immensely. So as educators, I love these 2 quotes, which my colleague Maureen shared with me. Consciously, we teach what we know, and unconsciously, we teach who we are. We cannot see what is out there merely by looking around. Everything depends on the lenses through which we view the world. So one big part of having a meaningful conversation is self-awareness. We have to be self-aware in order to engage in meaningful conversations. So that's going to be our next step. And we're going to do a process that I've recently learned. I love taking risks and trying new things. So you're part of my new things. Otherwise, I would just bore myself doing some of what I always do. So last night, I decided to switch up what I was doing and try something new. So we're going to do a process called Locate Yourself. So for this, you're going to need paper and something to write on. And I just want to start off by saying what you put on your paper does not have to be shared. That will always be your option. But I'm hoping that we will have sharing from what we're doing today. So I'm going to ask a series of questions. It's 8 questions altogether. You can skip a question and stick with one you're already on, or you can decide to do all 8 kind of in a short way. So you have an option of how you move forward through this process. Everybody clear on that? So I'm going to ask a question and you get to journal or write about it for a moment, for a little bit. I'm going to apologize now for interrupting you because I will. That's what we do as presenters. We interrupt people. Educators interrupt people all the time. So I'm going to interrupt you as we go. So the first question is, what are components of a healthy you? So start writing on this. You'll have about a minute to write down your thoughts. It could be words, sentences, drawings, whatever you'd like to do. What are components of a healthy you? All right, I'm about to introduce the second question. Remember, you don't have to finish. These are things you might care to come back to. The second question, when is the time you felt healthy, whole and free with others? Were you with others or by yourself? What did you see, smell, and feel? When's a time you felt healthy, whole, and free? Were you with others? What did you see, smell, and feel? We're taking about a minute for each one. I'm about to introduce the next question. Where do you see yourself in this time of global upheaval? What are you wearing, seeing? What do you smell? Where are you standing? What is the temperature? Where do you see yourself in the time of global upheaval? All right, I'm going to move to the next question. When is the first time you felt fear? Where were you? What were you doing? Did you feel safe? When is the first time you felt fear? Where were you? What were you doing? Did you feel safe? So if you're just joining us, we're taking time to journal just quickly on different questions and prompts. And here's the next prompt. What has changed for you in these times that matters deeply? What has changed for you that matters deeply? Next question. When was the first time you felt uncertain? When do you first remember feeling uncertain? When do you remember feeling uncertain? And a few more. Create an image that you would use to describe yourself today. Create an image that you would use to describe yourself today. And the last one is, what are you certain about for the next 5 minutes? And this is a question that came from yesterday's workshop about we can be certain for 5 minutes. What are you certain about for the next 5 minutes? That's the last prompt. And we'll come back together in about 30 to 40 seconds. All right. All right, how's everybody doing? Doing all right? Okay, good. Well, thank you for going through this with me. Before we even move forward, I just wanted to check in for a minute and see any response just to this part, just to taking a moment and doing this kind of journaling. Any thoughts or response? You're welcome to put it in the chat box if that's easier. Why don't we take a moment and just put in the chat box a response to what we just did? If you would like to, just take a moment. I'm going to go back and share my screen for a minute. Thank you, Courtney. So personal time to reflect, and I wonder how many of us take that time. I don't think I do enough. So I'll just see if there, I'll wait a moment to see if there are any other responses. Time to self-reflect. Yes, I think that's so important. Maria wrote that she had to really reflect about the questions. Some were easier to answer than others. And Maria, I felt that same way, and I knew what the questions were ahead of time. You know, it's so funny when we create these kind of experiences, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy for us to do either. I've learned that, you know, when I really then participate. All right, so we're going to just take another moment as we move forward, because what we just did was was stimulating, and a lot was going on, at least for me. So we're going to take a moment. This is when we're doing work with others, we take another moment just to breathe for a moment. So we're just going to do a simple realignment and breathe as we move forward into the next step. So just take a moment to sit up straight again and just relax for a moment, because we remember, we reflect, a lot comes up. So we're going to take a moment. We'll just do 2 box breaths. We're going to inhale at my count of 3, hold for 3, and exhale for 3. So inhale, 1, 2, 3, inhale. 1, 2, 3, hold for 3. 1, 2, 3, exhale. Now this time before we do it, let's lift our shoulders up and bring them down. And do that one more time. Lift them up and bring them down. And now I'll just leave them there as we inhale for 3. 1, 2, 3, inhale. Hold for 3, 2, 1, and exhale. 3, 2, 1. One last time. Inhale. Hold and exhale. Great. So we just did a little moment of reflecting about ourselves. But next we're going to be being aware of others. So if we're moving into a space where we're going to share or connect with others, what does this really mean? What does it mean to be aware of others? So what I'm going to ask us to do, because I think it's easier with this group, is open the chat box again. And in the chat box, I'd like us to take a moment and write, what does it mean to be aware of others? Don't send it yet. We're just, everybody write, what does it mean to be aware of others. Again, I don't think this is a question. I know this is not a question I've asked in my workshops before. This is new in this new work I'm doing and thinking about these meaningful conversations. What does it mean to you to be aware of others? So place that in the chat and we'll send it all at the same time. All right, at the count of 3, we'll press send. 1, 2, 3, send. Be intuitive, yes. This is great. To leave self and look outward, to see hear their stories, bring some empathy, to listen. You have to be aware of self to do this. All right, so in thinking about this, several ideas came to my mind. I'm going to share with you what it means for me to be aware of others. One is to show up, to really show up. And part of that is to put things aside. We all know when we're sort of there, we're kind of there. To be aware of others, we have to show up and stay present. And yeah, I'll save that for later. To hold their stories or hold the stories or the presence of others without judgment. This is hard, especially when with your own children. I have to just acknowledge it, or siblings or spouses or partners, to really step outside of judgment, to hold stories or the presence of others without judgment. And being without judgment is an exercise I've been working on for years now. In fact, it's one of the ideas I've been carrying forth in all my work in education is, can we create non-judgmental spaces for learners? Now, I know we can learn in judgmental spaces because we do, but could we learn better and deeper without them? And I believe we could. So how do we remove judgment as much as possible? Do we tune into each other? That's also part of showing up. But do we really tune in? And Dennis, this reminds me of what you said. If we don't understand something, do we ask for clarity? Or do we just pretend we know what's going on? Are we really tuning into them and making sure we know what they're talking about and understanding it really thoughtfully? Do we step back and give them space? Okay, this is my hardest one. I have to tell you, this is the hardest one for me. I ask a question ready to answer it before the person even has a chance. So do I really step back and give the other person space? This is really, for some of us, this is tricky. Moi. Do we follow up? If there's a need to, or we say we will, do we follow up? And then what was also said in the box is listen. Do we really listen? Do we really listen? And listening, we're going to dive into listening for a moment because I think it's so important and so delicious to talk about. So listening, if you're listening, you can't be thinking about what you want to say next. I just want to mention that. That's a practice that really can take years to resolve. When you listen, you're not thinking about what you're going to say next. You're really listening. So we're really going to dive into this idea of listening for a little bit because I think it's worthy. So I have a real fascination with Chinese characters. I have for a long time. When I was in my early 20s, I was introduced to the martial art and practice of Tai Chi Chuan. And I started being a practitioner and studying Tai Chi Chuan from when I was 21, and I still study now. I'm very dangerous, I'm joking. And I actually met my husband doing Tai Chi. So I did take a break for a long time when I had kids, but I've been doing it again. So studying a little bit of Chinese language, all this led me to really be such a fan of looking at Chinese language to help unravel meaning and purpose. So our language is also fascinating. All languages are fascinating, but Chinese language tells a story. There's a story. It's made up of characters that mean something. I'm going to give you an example with the character trust. This is the Chinese character for trust, and it's actually made up of 2 characters. It's not really, 2 characters form 1 character. The character that's on my left of my screen is the character for person. You can see it looks almost like a person, right? You could imagine it's a person, a little stick figure person. So that's a person. And on the right, the character that has all the lines in the box means word. and also to speak. So when I think about this, for me, it means a person standing by their word is trust. You with me on this? You have to get into this headspace for a moment. So whenever I want to share a concept with people, I go back to the Chinese character to see what it means, to see the story, because I love the stories. So when I was unraveling about listening years ago, as I was developing all these curriculum materials for youth and adults about listening, the Chinese character to listen is actually made up of 5 characters. Get a load of this. It's made of 5 characters: an ear, 10 eyes, undivided attention, 1 heart, and a king. All right. So we are going to actually do an experience to learn more about what this means. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen in just a second, and I'm going to give you a role, and I'm going to ask 5 of you to participate with me. So I'm so excited. All right. So I see people on the screen, and I see actually 5 of you. So I'm going to ask all 5 of you, are you willing to participate? Yes, so all of you need to turn on your mic. I'm so excited. This is like one of my favorite things to do. So, oh, good. We have 6. Come back in, Jordan. We got you. All right. So just so you know, when I do this in real workshops, and you can do it virtually, if we had everybody here, what I would do is put you in breakout rooms of 5 each to do. I'm doing a workshop with Moscow, an international school Moscow tomorrow, and I have 40 people, and I'm going to put them in breakout rooms with 5 each. When I do this in person, I have people stand in a cluster of 5 each. So just so you know how to do this, because I think you're going to want to do this because it's wonderful. All right. So so I'm going to have you count off. So 5 of you, and since there's 6 of you, 2 of you are going to be 1 number. So I need who wants to be 1. You can either show a finger. Okay, I've got Jordan is 1. Who's number 2? Okay, Courtney's number 2. Who's number 3? Dennis, I got a number 3. Who's number 4? Yay, Marie. Who's number 5? Okay, Kimberly's number 5. Kathy, what number you want to be? You can jump in and be any number, 1 to 5, and you also, Michelle. Okay, I have another 1, and Michelle, what number are you going to be? 3. Okay, this is how it works. Yay, I'm so excited. Can you tell? All right, so now you are no longer yourself. Jordan, you are now an ear. If you're number 1, you're actually an ear. If you are number 2, you are 10 eyes. Okay. If you're number 3, you're undivided attention. If you're number 4, you're 1 heart. If you're number 5, you're king. Everybody got that? I'll repeat it. If you're number 1, what are you? An ear. If you're number 2, you're 10 eyes. If you're number 3, you're undivided attention. And number 4, you're a heart. Number 5, you're a king. And you are these things. So I would introduce myself. Hi, I'm an ear. And so you speak from the perspective as an ear. So what you get to do now is you get to tell us what you, in your new identity, have to do with listening. So we're going to go in order. And we're going to have the 1s tell us first, then the 2. We have 2 1s, then a 2, a 3. I think we have 2 3s, a 4, and a 5. So I have 2 1s. Jordan and Kathy, tell us what you have to do with listening.
Oh, take in all the sounds.
Thank you. What about you, Kathy?
I'm all about you. Whatever you have to say, I hear.
Perfect. Okay, number 2. What do our 10 eyes have to tell us?
I'm looking for body language. I'm looking for cues. I'm looking for signs of happiness or sadness or emotion.
Great. Number 3.
Nothing in the room is more important than you right now, and you have my entire attention.
Wonderful. Number 4, I think I've got 2 hearts. Which number were you, Michelle?
3.
Okay, tell us what you in undivided attention.
I've set all other things aside, and I've actually turned my body so that I'm looking right at you.
Number 4, heart.
I've opened my heart to come with love and respect.
Great. And the king has arrived. Kimberly.
You did say king, like King, right? Okay. And I am governing everything that's happening. And I am ready to suggest some choices or decisions to make.
I love doing this. This is so fun. This strategy I do called Be the Concept. We don't talk about it, we be it. We be it. We be the thing. And by being it, you unravel it in new ways. So thank you for doing this. I'll tell you a story in a minute, but first I'm going to go back to my screen and we're going to just see what happened here. Okay, we're going to go back to the character. All right. So we were the character. We became the character. All right, and you did a phenomenal job. And now I'm going to share with you what the Chinese character means according to the etymologist. And you have no idea. I've talked to at least 10 Chinese etymologists to get this right. I mean, I was no lightweight person here. I really double checked because, you know I do a lot of work in Asia. I have to be careful. So this is what it says. The ears hear the words and tones, while 10 eyes look out for the body language. I'm telling you, y'all are getting this right on the money here. The king of listening lies with one heart of undivided attention to listen to the unspoken thoughts. Isn't that lovely? So I have to tell you a little story. I love stories anyway. So I was doing a workshop in Beijing, actually. And I've been very fortunate the way I've been able to travel the world with my work. So I was doing a work in Beijing, and this workshop was 2 days. And I was doing work on social emotional development and with service learning, taking action. And I had these educators for 2 days, and I had a translator. I do not speak Chinese. So I did this experience with these Chinese educators, having given a tremendous apology for thinking I know more about their language than they do, which I don't. But they loved this and they loved participating in this. The second day, one of the teachers, they all returned, and one teacher said at the end of the first day, she had gone back to her high school to lead the debate club. And the first thing she did in the debate club was did this with the participants, the students. She led this with the high school students only an hour or two after she left the workshop, or even sooner. Then they were in debate practice and they were trying some things out, and someone gave a sample debate. And one of the girls raised her hand and said, "You didn't put your heart into it." That teacher was certain that girl would never have said that if not for this experience. That right away, this started shifting how they were thinking about what to listen really means. I found that so moving and so gratifying that when we break things down, we don't make assumptions. We can take any concept and break it down. And that's part of how we have meaningful conversations. And think of all the important words we use all the time, but we haven't broken them down to really make sure we know what we're talking about. Listening is a great example of that. And you can go further. I have so many materials. If you're interested, you can email me. I've got all these resources on active listening and also distractions, how to handle distractions. At the end of the session, I'll leave time for Q&A. And if you'd like me to talk more about this, I'm more than glad to. But I think this is a real important exercise, because at what age should we stop practicing active listening? No age. All right, so we agree on that one. All right. So we're not going to breakout rooms today. I was going to do that, but we're not, we don't have the setup now. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to share, we're going to move into the time of listening to each other, bringing what we did on our, what we call our locating ourselves bundle. This is going to be a time of sharing of how do we practice meaningful conversations. So what we're going to do, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to invite you to participate. I have my list here. I've been writing on envelopes. I have too many. So I made a list of my answers to the questions that we asked earlier. And I'm going to invite anyone, hopefully all of us, to take a few minutes to participate in a meaningful conversation. Right now we have 8 people on the screen. Others may be listening or like to join in. I don't know if you're present because it's hard to know if I don't see you or hear from you. I know some of you have been participating in the chat, which I'm grateful for. So this is an invitation, and this is not a requirement because I can't impose that on anyone. I would never do that. But I'm hopeful that we might, each of us, take a few minutes, maybe 3 minutes each. It's up to you, or 2 minutes each. We could start with 2 minutes and see where it goes, to share some of the responses from your self-reflections. What you choose is completely up to you, but to have meaningful conversations means to bring ourselves and to share with others. So that's the invitation. And what I'm going to suggest is that one of us starts, and when they're done, they toss it to someone else on the screen who can pass or participate and toss it to someone else. And that what we all do and one of the tendencies when someone's given time to talk in Zoom space is not to fill the time. Have you noticed? They're very short. We don't fill the time, especially if we're sharing about ourselves. So when I was working on this idea with my colleague, Chris, we said, we're going to have everybody else who's not speaking be the active listeners and responders with, tell me more. You have more time. You're not done yet. Come on, share some more. Or ask for literacy moments, that we actually give each person a few minutes. So I'm going to defer to the group here. How many minutes do you think would be a good amount to have as our talking time? I'm not going to decide. Somebody make a suggestion. You could say 1 minute, 2, 3, 4, 5. Everybody at the count of 3, hold up a hand and share how many minutes you think we should have for sharing. So at the count of 3, hold up your fist so I know you're going to do it. Hold up your fist. Okay. The count of 3, share how many minutes you'd like us to have. Go. I see 1, 2. I see a lot of 1s and 2s. I'm going to go for 2, if you're okay with that. I'm going to set my timer so nobody else has to. And I'm going to make sure we do 2 minutes. So do I have someone who would like to start? Raise your hand if you're a starter. You're ready to jump in. Anybody ready to start? I could start. I'll start and then I'll toss it, okay? All right, so I'm going to set the time. So someone else has to time for me. Will someone time? Who's going to be my timekeeper? Thank you, Kathy. Kathy's going to time. All right. So I don't remember the questions because I'm looking now at my answers, but I think what keeps me healthy is my partner. He grounds me. He definitely does. And cooking. I'm cooking so much more, and I'm a really good cook. If you want recipes, I'm glad to share. I'm mainly a vegan who eats seafood, so I'm just cooking up a storm. And my Zumba class is really helpful. For the first 6 weeks, I didn't miss a single one. It was 7 days a week, but now I'm missing some. And taking time for myself, which I do not do enough. I don't do enough. And where I see myself in this time of COVID is I kind of had this vision of me standing in the middle of my living room in shorts and a tank top, and just kind of with stagnant air around me. It feels very stagnant. What's changed so much for me is no travel. It's been an abrupt end to a lifestyle. And that's been very challenging for me, like super, super challenging. What it has given me, though, as a gift is more time with my husband. We've not seen each other this much in 30 years. I've been always on the road or often on the road. And more time with my baby, Lou, our baby Lou, who I adore. And that's been important. And I drew an image of me, how I see myself right now. That's my image. But there's no facial expression beside eyes, because I don't know if I'm happy, sad, screaming. I'm not sure from moment to moment. And what I'm certain of is that I am safe, healthy, Zooming, and I'm present. So that's my time. So I'm going to toss it to Dennis. Would you like to participate, Dennis?
Oh, wait, before you pass, you've still got 20 seconds left.
Oh, I do. Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you. Oh, good. What else? Where I felt most free was I spent a summer when I was about 23 studying Commedia dell'arte theater in rural Northern California, outside of Weock, California. And every day I was exercising and working out about 6 to 8 hours a day, no joke. I was doing theater all the time. I was eating healthy and I was living outdoors. It was fabulous. Thank you, Kathy. Oh, you're a really good timekeeper. All right, Dennis, I'm tossing to you, and I'm going to be as good a timekeeper, I hope, as Kathy.
Well, So as I look at the questions and when did I feel the most healthy and free? It's when I'm out in nature, backpacking or climbing mountains, usually with my brother or other friends. So I've got family there, but I love that freedom of feeling the sun and the wind or the rain and the cold or whatever it is. I love a good storm. It makes me feel alive. Or up skiing in the mountains. So freedom of the hills. That's what you get when you grow up in North Idaho and the Pacific Northwest. In the COVID thing, I agree with you. One of the reasons I took this job I'm in now, which is I work at the Education Service District, and this is only the end of year one, starting year two, was the promise that I could travel around to the schools and the friends that I've made over the years and be a service to them. And I love being able to go out and visit old friends that I hadn't seen for a while and be able to do something that makes their life easier. And now it's all Zoom or it's phone calls and I'm not getting that physical time in a car to think and to drive and just enjoy where I'm going. And then that time with people to laugh with them, to eat with them, to give them a hug, and to do the work that we want to do for kids. You had some questions at the end there that I can't answer right now. Like the first time I felt fear to go that far back, I'm not sure when that was. I'm not a young man anymore. And the first time that I felt uncertain, and I'm a man of white privilege and did well in school and was pampered by my parents. So I don't have, I grew up feeling confident in most things that I've done in my life. When I was a child, I'm sure I was overconfident. When I was a teenager, I'm sure I was obnoxious. And I'm sure some of that is carried over.
Great. Thank you, Dennis. That was fantastic. That's your 2 minutes. Wow. Thank you so much. You want to toss it to somebody else? One more time, who will you toss it to?
I'll toss it to Michelle.
Okay, so let's see. When you were Dennis, when you were just saying that you couldn't remember like the first time that you felt fear and those things, it kind of struck me because I was there too. I couldn't remember the first time I felt fear, but when she asked the first time I felt uncertain, grade 3 math just jumped straight into my brain. And it's good to know thousands of years later that I can do math, but at that moment in time, I was very uncertain. Let's see. Times that I felt healthy, whole, and free. I, like Kathy, have spent most of my professional adult life teaching overseas. So travel to me has been pretty important. But every summer, I always came home to Washington and spent time between Washington and Oregon really with family. And so I would say that those family reunions or those times that I was reconnecting and making sure that my kids were really staying connected to cousins and to family. I think those summers home were more important or as important than anything that we were doing in the months in between, just to stay connected. So I would say those. And let's see, things that make me a healthy you is also being outside and hiking. It's part of why we want to move back to the Pacific Northwest. And being in the mountains. We live in Buckley, which is, I can take a little walk and see Mount Rainier. And so I love that. I love being close enough within an hour to the park that we can go in and we can do that. And at this time, those were all positive things. At this moment in time, in the next 5 minutes, or however I'm feeling in this time of upheaval, I have a lot of anxiety about things right now and the next month in our country, and I just have those worries. So
Great. Thank you, Michelle.
important to me.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it so much. Will you toss it to someone else?
Yeah, I'll toss it to Kimberly.
Hello, everyone. Okay, just got to make sure I wasn't muted. That happens sometimes. Yeah, I think I feel most healthy or free when I have, well, the least amount of responsibility. Also, just, yeah, being outside as well. I'm from Washington, but I lived in Arizona for 5 years. And so I love everything here in terms of environment, but I started to really enjoy the warm landscape of canyons, and there's like cave dwellings and all sorts of really ancient things in Arizona. So for me, because that's a little more recent, like hiking in Sedona and different places like that, that's where I think of being free. And there's a lot of spiritual focus in those places. So it's kind of hard not to feel that way. Yeah, and I feel most healthy when I can like incorporate some sort of exercise or yoga or anything that is a shift from like cerebral activity, because I think I get really like down the rabbit hole sometimes, metaphorically speaking, with thinking. It's just the nature of work sometimes, is you just try to problem solve as many ways you can in certain situations. And for me, I'm the community engagement coordinator for Community Minded Enterprises. So I kind of get a lot of like, I have to think a lot in terms of populations and what best fits different needs. And I think because of COVID, I was used to being a very hands-on person. Everything was very interpersonal. I would drive to places. I would drive to resources. I would figure out things in person. And that changed things up for me. But I think also just the other biggest change because of COVID is like slowing down, like somehow getting all the same work done, but slowing down. So it's really kind of strange how we all manage to still get all our work done, but in a different way. I think I actually breathe more, to be honest, like a little bit. I think I have more time to listen to my breath than I did when I was just driving to location, looking for people in different places, you know, finding different meeting rooms, all those kinds of things. So some ways that's kind of a positive.
Great. Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I've got all those images of caves now in my brain.
Yeah.
Who would you like to toss it to?
Can I toss it to Courtney?
All right. This was a really good reflection for me because the last, 6 to 8 months, I've changed careers and professions, or not, I'm still in education, but I feel like COVID has helped me to step out of my comfort zone and to really jump into a new adventure, I guess. So I'll just kind of go through the questions. When I am at my best, I'm relaxed, I'm exercised. I have a Peloton and absolutely love that thing. I love being able to just put my headphones on and sweat and just tune out the world. I'm calm. Being organized and on time and prepared is something that's really come up over the last couple months, because I feel like previously it was such a frenzy, from work to kids' activities to practice, dance, soccer, basketball, here, there, and everywhere. And while I thought that we loved that for our 11-year-old and 7-year-old, I think the step back has been really good. But being that organized and prepared, where I didn't used to get to be that way, I've really enjoyed that. The place where I could recall that I was most like feeling whole and free was with friends in Disney World a few years back, and I smelled sugary waffle cones. I saw Mickey Mouse, and I just had elation because it was just a nice warm vacation that I never had an opportunity to go on when I was little or anything like that, and was able to take my kids, and that was great. My dogs are barking, sorry. When I'm doing well, I'm working from home. I'm focusing on what's important, doing the good work to help impact educators and students throughout the country. My fear that I remembered was, I apologize for my dogs. They never bark unless I'm actually talking. Somebody must be here. My first remembrance of fear was when I got shots in the doctor's office, and I did feel safe. I knew I would be okay, but I was just really scared. And then what I've appreciated with COVID or this time is the family time at home, games, crafts, the not being scheduled 24/7. My image that I drew was a wave. I've had a lot of just kind of the ups and downs, the emotions, and supporting friends from afar has been interesting because everybody, like, I think it was Kimberly or Michelle who mentioned kind of that anxiety piece and the uncertainty. And I was having a good conversation last night with my 11-year-old who's pretty smart and worldly. And she just said, our world is in such a trying time right now. And that was kind of good for me to reflect on. And then, I think that's about what I have here. But I think, I think the collaboration between people on Zooms and meeting new people has been interesting because I've met more people nationwide by doing some of this virtual stuff than I ever would have just being in my small little town of Davenport, Washington.
Thank you, Courtney. I really appreciate your thoughts. Thank you so much. Would you like to toss it to, I think we have Kim. Oh, it says Kim Spacek, but I think it may not be Kim, and Maria to toss it to.
I'll toss it to Maria.
Can't hear you.
This has been interesting because as I hear all your stories, I've been writing little post-its with words that I've been hearing and listening. So one was around like sort of the travel, right? So in my role, I used to travel a lot, and it was one of the things that I really enjoyed. One, because it got me out of my own comfort zone, right? And it brought in sort of my perspective about the world and what education looks like outside of New York City. So I do miss that. I never thought I would say that, but on the whole, I miss traveling. The other piece around the time, like when you're feeling healthy, whole, and free, some of you talked about, yoga, meditation, and that has become, since COVID, that has become a routine that I've done every day since all of this started, because I was in a space of anxiety. I care for my mother, who's 86 years old, and so making sure that she's safe, that she's cared for, creates anxiety as you're going out and trying to live your life as normal as possible. And so going outside, wearing a mask, really has created an additional self-awareness about how I behave, how I care for myself so that I can care for others has been a big thing for me. I think one of the things that you talked about what matters deeply, and I think relationships and connectiveness, and trying through my role in education and as a mother and a daughter and a wife and all those roles is try to make sure that we continue to hold on to our values, even if we have to do it by phone or by video. Thank you. I guess I'll
Kim's spot.
Yeah.
I had to leave for a few minutes to take care of a busing issue. So just give me a question and I will try to answer.
Sure. What keeps you healthy and strong in these times?
Well, I think probably throughout my life, I taught industrial education and I'm a woodworker. And when I went into administration, I started buying enough wood equipment to outfit my own shop. And my wife's a quilter, a retired educator. And so we both have hobbies. And all throughout our lives, we haven't, I would say there's probably a handful of times that we attended stuff at night. So we were always social distanced. And we've always had hobbies to take care of ourselves. So now I do a lot of woodworking and have had the time to do that, as well as, you take work at home as a superintendent. So really both of us have kept healthy in that regard and moved forward. And we live out in rural Washington, about 15 miles from the first stoplight up at Kettle Falls, or the only stoplight in Kettle Falls. So, we don't, I guess our work is our people. Otherwise, we're home with each other and take care of each other.
Well, thank you. I like to thank everyone. Now, I wasn't sure, Kevin, are you participating today? I wasn't.
Okay. I sure can, yes. So, yeah, I have to go with glasses here, Kathy.
That's fine.
Health-wise during this time, I think the keeping busy, has been kind of really important. We're not out as far as Kim is, but we're still outside of Spokane and have a little bit of acreage, and we have built things. I am not a wood maker or a craftsman of any kind, but we have built some things. We built an A-frame house, and we built a small house, Kathy. I mean, it's like a playhouse, but and some fences and gardens and just different things. I mean, just kind of those project things that kind of kept us busy during that time. There's a little throwback time. I have no idea what it was like in the 1930s or 1940s, but it feels like without movies and some of those things that we used to, and athletics and things that we used to go to and attend, that we had to find some other things to do. So we've kind of done those type of things. So I'm a desert person. But what I'm really is kind of like some of you folks is we've done some travel over the last few years, and I'm the kind of the freedom I think I feel is when you show up at a place again. So like Michelle, I mean, I grew up over by Mount Rainier, so when I go over to the west side and I see Mount Rainier, there's a freedom there. When you see the Puget Sound in Seattle, there's a freedom and memories there. When I go to Arizona, I feel very free when I'm out in the desert, and I think that's because that's so different from what I grew up with, which was the mountains. And so just kind of walking out there just kind of gives me a different freedom. And I know Kimberly Holt, I don't see her on there right now, but some of those hikes where you see some of the caves and the drawings and those type of things in Arizona are pretty cool.
All right, that's your time, Kevin. So thank you. I'm going to, just because we're running to the end of our day, I'm going to have to bring that to a halt. But thank you so much. I'm so glad you joined in. And for each of you, thank you so much. This is, so let's take a moment and think about what happened here in this space, that we took this time for this kind of interaction. So I'm going to go back and share my screen just for a moment here as we're winding up. I think I'm going to move back to, just because we're winding down, to, oh, wait a second, excuse me. Let me just get the right slide. To think about what happened here, what did we learn, and what did we take away? So what happened in this space? What did we learn together? And what do we take away? So let's just take a moment and think about that for yourself, about what happened here, what did we learn, and what do we take away? And then I'm going to share a resource I'd love for you to take. I was thinking, depending on time, we'd watch it together, but I'm hoping you'll take 6 minutes and watch it later today. So let's take a moment and just think of what happened here, what did we learn, and what did we take away? And let's put that in the chat box so we can share what we're thinking now and what happened. So whenever you like, you go ahead and put in the chat box what happened here, what did we learn, what did we take away? You could answer 1 or 3 of those, and just short, just a couple of words. What happened, what did we learn, what did we take away? You know, what I'm really also, we define meaningful conversations. Yeah. I think taking the time to listen is so critical, and I think we did that today. I think that's also really critical. And it stemmed from being in touch with ourselves and taking time for ourselves. So I think that's really important. So I'd like to share with you a resource that a colleague of mine turned me onto, and it's called Big Talk. If any of you come across this yet. Okay. So this is the how to find the video, one video that's a 6-minute video. A woman named Kalina started a process to replace small talk with big talk. And that's what we've been doing today also. We've been doing big talk. And I think watching this video will pull together some of the ideas we talked, which is one aspect of some of the ideas we talked about. But I think it's a beautiful video, and it shows how we can connect with others in meaningful ways in all kinds of conversations. So I hope that you will take the time to watch this, and I'd love to hear from you about what you thought afterwards. So I first of all just want to thank you for being in community today. I would love to stay in touch with you and know about your work. I do a lot of work in New York. Maria, I'm there. Normally I'm there all the time. I do a big program I'd love to share with you and hear more about your work in New York. And all of you, I'd love to know how you're doing and what you've changed your job to, Courtney, what you're doing now. There's so many questions. I would love to follow up on each and every person that's in this space, every single person. So I hope you will drop me a note and stay in touch. You know, when I consult, and Michelle knows that, like when I would go anywhere, whether it's New York, Denver, or schools in LA, once I make connections, I stay connected. I aim not to just say, well, I was here, I'm gone. I aim to stay connected. So I hope you will stay connected. And if you want any of my resources about active listening to use with students, please let me know. And I will be glad. I will try and stay on for a little while. I've got a call soon, but I will stay on, Courtney, for a bit. I would love to. So I will definitely catch the beginning of your presentation. Thank you so much for inviting me. So I want to thank you all for this lovely time this morning. You really set a tone for my day of being thoughtful and inclusive and caring, and that I will carry with me. So I'm going to thank you very much for this. So thank you. Thank you again for inviting me. Thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate it.